The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep hum that vibrated through the crystalline walls. Ambassador Kim Hana stepped inside, her black diplomatic uniform a stark contrast against the alien architecture that surrounded her. Behind her walked two other humans, Lieutenant Park Dae and Dr. Yoon Soo, both trying not to stare at the incredible sight before them. The chamber was enormous, easily the size of 3 football stadiums. Floating platforms held representatives from dozens of alien species, each more imposing than the last. At the center sat the 3 most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, their representatives towering above the smaller platforms like ancient gods. Kim Hana had studied each species for months, but seeing them in person was different. The Krillian general stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body covered in natural armor plating that looked like polished black stone. Sharp spikes jutted from his shoulders and elbows, and his forearms ended in claws that could probably cut through steel. When he moved, the armor plates shifted and clicked together like a living fortress. To the right, the Zephyrian ambassador floated without touching the ground. Her body seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. Thin wires of light connected her directly to the technology around her, making her appear more like a computer than a living being. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes dancing in a gentle breeze. The most unsettling was the Vorthak representative. Its body constantly shifted and changed shape like liquid metal, never staying the same form for more than a few seconds. Kim could feel pressure in her mind whenever it looked at her, as if invisible fingers were trying to read her thoughts. "So, these are the humans," the Krillian general rumbled, his voice so deep it seemed to come from underground. "The soft creatures from the small yellow star." Kim stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "I am Ambassador Kim Hana, representing the United Earth Government. We are honored to address this council." A ripple of what might have been laughter passed through the assembled aliens. The sound was strange and unsettling, like metal scraping against glass mixed with the buzzing of enormous insects. "Honored," repeated the Zephyrian, her crystal body flickering brighter. "How curious. Most species that come before us are terrified." The Vorthak's thoughts pressed against Kim's mind, and she heard its voice without it speaking aloud. The words felt cold and slimy inside her head. Perhaps they do not understand the danger they face in this galaxy. Perhaps they are too simple to comprehend it. Kim kept her expression calm, even though her heart was racing. She had trained for this moment for years, but nothing could have prepared her for the overwhelming presence of these beings. Earth requests consideration for inclusion in the Galactic Defense Network. "We believe we can contribute to the security of all civilized worlds." The reaction was immediate, the Krillian general's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Kim recognized as their version of laughter. Several other alien representatives made sounds that were clearly mocking. Even the floating platform seemed to bob up and down as if their occupants were struggling to contain their amusement. "Contribute?" The general's forearms gestured dismissively. "What could your species possibly offer? You cannot even survive in space without artificial environments. Your bodies are soft and weak. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities." Dr. Yoon Soo shifted uncomfortably beside Kim. The elderly scientist had spent his entire career developing humanity's greatest technological achievements, and hearing them dismissed so casually clearly stung. But Kim had warned her team about this. They had expected contempt. "We may lack natural defenses," Kim replied carefully, "but humanity has other strengths. Our technology, our determination, our ability to adapt and overcome challenges." The Zephyrian's body pulsed with what looked like suppressed laughter. "Your technology? We have observed your crude machines. Metal and fire, so primitive compared to our bio-integrated systems. And your determination means nothing when plasma fire melts your flesh," added a voice from one of the smaller platforms. Kim could not see which species had spoken, but the words carried clearly across the chamber. The Vorthak's thoughts pressed harder against her mind, and this time Kim could feel genuine curiosity mixed with the contempt. "Show us your strength, little human. Demonstrate why we should not simply ignore your insignificant world." Kim had prepared for this moment. She reached into her diplomatic case and withdrew a small device, a standard human military scanner. To the aliens, it probably looked like a child's toy. She activated it and held it up. This device can penetrate any known material and provide detailed structural analysis, she said simply. It runs on a power source that will function for 50 years without replacement. The chamber fell quiet for a moment. Then, the laughter began again, louder this time. 50 years? The Krillian general's armor plates shifted as his body shook, with amusement. Our equipment lasts for centuries. 50 years is nothing. Kim nodded and put the device away. She had known they would not be impressed. Human technology was different, not necessarily better in obvious ways. But it was designed for humans, by humans, and that made all the difference. Very well, the Zephyrian announced, her voice taking on a formal tone. The Galactic Council will grant humanity a probationary membership. You will be assigned support roles in upcoming operations, supply transport, communications relay, medical assistance for wounded warriors. Kim bowed again. We accept the Council's decision and look forward to serving alongside the galaxy's finest. As the human delegation filed out of the chamber, Kim could hear the aliens continuing to discuss humanity behind them. The words were not kind. They spoke of fragile creatures playing at being warriors, of soft flesh that would melt under real combat conditions, of a species too weak to matter in the dangerous galaxy beyond their small world. Kim said nothing, but she smiled slightly as the great doors closed behind them. 3 weeks later, Captain Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the human frigate Soul's Pride, watching the massive alien fleet assemble around them. The sight was both impressive and intimidating. Dozens of warships from across the galaxy had gathered in the empty space near the Kepler asteroid field, their weapons bristling with enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The largest ship belonged to General Vexthor of the Krillian Empire. It was a massive dreadnought that stretched for kilometers, its hull covered in the same black armor plating that protected the Krillian warriors. Weapon ports lined its sides like the eyes of some ancient sea monster, and energy crackled between defensive shields that could probably stop a meteor. Beside it floated the Zephyrian command vessel, a delicate structure of crystal and light that seemed to dance through space. Despite its beauty, Lee knew it packed enough electronic warfare capability to shut down an entire star system's communications. The Vorthak ship was the strangest of all. It constantly changed shape, flowing from one configuration to another like liquid mercury. Sometimes it looked like a traditional starship, other times like a living creature swimming through the void. And then there was the Soul's Pride. At only 200 meters long, it looked like a tiny minnow swimming among whales. The alien crews probably wondered why the humans had even bothered to show up. Captain, his communications officer called out, General Vexthor is requesting a fleet conference. Lee nodded and activated the main view screen. The Krillian general's massive form filled the display, his forearms spread wide as he addressed the assembled fleet commanders. Intelligence reports confirm the pirate base is located in asteroid XK-739, the general announced. They have fortified the interior with stolen military equipment and are holding over 300 civilian hostages. This will be a challenging operation. Lee studied the tactical display that appeared beside the general's image. The asteroid was huge, easily 10 kilometers across and honeycombed with tunnels and chambers. The pirates had turned it into a fortress, complete with shield generators and defensive weapon emplacements. My warriors will lead the assault, General Vexthor continued. Our natural armor makes us ideal for close combat in confined spaces. The Zephyrians will handle electronic warfare and disable their defensive systems. The Vorthak will provide psychic support and locate the hostages. The general's eyes focused on Lee's image in the corner of the display. The humans will maintain communications and provide medical support for casualties. Stay well back from the combat zone. Lee bit back his first response. The dismissive tone was clear, but he had his orders from Earth Command. Understood, General. The Soul's Pride will be ready to assist as needed. Several alien commanders made sounds that Lee had learned to recognize as laughter. The message was clear. The humans were only there because the Galactic Council required their presence, not because anyone expected them to contribute meaningfully. The assault began an hour later. Lee watched from the bridge as the first wave of Krillian warriors launched toward the asteroid in heavily armored transports. Each warrior was a living weapon, their natural armor able to withstand most small arms fire. Behind them came the Zephyrian tech specialists, their crystal bodies interfacing directly with electronic systems to hack and disable enemy defenses. At first, everything seemed to go according to plan. The Krillian transports approached the asteroid without incident, and the Zephyrian electronic warfare specialists began their work on the defensive systems. Then the pirates opened fire. The asteroid's surface erupted with plasma cannons and particle beam weapons. The pirates had obviously been preparing for this moment, and they had acquired military-grade hardware from somewhere. The first Krillian transport exploded in a ball of superheated gas before it could even reach the asteroid's surface. Impossible, General Vexthor roared over the communications channel. Those are military-grade weapons. How did pirates acquire such firepower? More transports exploded as the pirates concentrated their fire. The Krillian warriors who managed to reach the asteroid found themselves pinned down by defensive positions that had been expertly prepared. Their natural armor, so effective against conventional weapons, was struggling against the advanced plasma technology. The Zephyrian specialists fared even worse. Their elegant crystal bodies were designed for interfacing with technology, not for withstanding concentrated weapons fire. Several of them were cut down before they could even begin their electronic warfare operations. Even the mighty Vorthax scions found themselves blocked. The pirates had somehow acquired mental shielding technology that prevented the psychic warriors from locating the hostages or disrupting enemy coordination. Lee watched the tactical display with growing concern as casualty reports poured in. Red markers indicated destroyed transports and fallen warriors. The assault that was supposed to be a quick strike was turning into a bloody disaster. "General," came a panicked voice over the communications channel, "we're taking heavy casualties. The defensive positions are too well prepared. We need to withdraw." General Vexthor's pride was clearly warring with military necessity. His elite warriors, the finest troops in the galaxy, were being cut down by what should have been inferior pirates. The shame of retreat would be enormous, but the alternative was watching his entire force be destroyed. Finally, the general opened a private channel to Lee. His voice was strained, and Lee could see the difficulty the proud warrior was having in making this request. "Captain Lee," the general said slowly, "do your people have anything that might assist with this situation?" Lee looked at his small crew of 200 humans. Then he looked at the tactical display showing the disaster unfolding around the asteroid. He thought about the equipment in his ship's cargo hold, the gear that the aliens had dismissed as primitive and crude. "My Marines are ready to deploy, General," Lee replied calmly. "We can handle this." The response was immediate. Every alien commander on the channel burst into what could only be described as laughter. The sound was a mixture of clicking mandibles, chiming crystals, and psychic static that made Lee's teeth ache. General Vexthor's expression was a mixture of desperation and disbelief. "Captain, my warriors are being slaughtered down there. What could your soft humans possibly accomplish that we cannot?" Lee smiled slightly and turned to his Marine commander. "Sergeant Park, prep the drop pods. It's time to show them what human engineering can do." In the cargo bay of the Soul's Pride, 30 human Marines prepared for what the alien observers expected to be a suicide mission. Staff Sergeant Park Gina moved between her soldiers, checking their equipment one final time. The bay was filled with what looked like bulky metal suits hanging from mechanical arms like sleeping giants. "Remember your training," Park announced to her team, her voice echoing in the large space. "They think we're weak because they've only seen us without our gear. Time to change their minds." Through the security cameras, alien commanders watched. The human preparations with a mixture of curiosity and pity. To their eyes, the humans looked even more fragile as they climbed into what appeared to be crude mechanical suits. The armor was thick and angular, covered in external components that seemed primitive compared to the sleek bio-integrated technology of other species. Look at them, General Vexthor muttered to his staff aboard the dreadnought. Hiding inside. Machines because their flesh is too weak for real combat. Those suits look heavy and slow. The Zephyrian observers were equally unimpressed. Their own technology merged seamlessly with their crystal bodies, becoming part of them rather than simply worn like clothing. The human suits looked clunky and inefficient by comparison. Even the Vorthak representative, its liquid form rippling with what might have been amusement, projected dismissive thoughts to the other commanders. Such crude augmentation. They make themselves into walking targets. Park sealed her helmet and felt the familiar hum as her suit systems came online. The heads-up display flickered to life, showing power levels, environmental readings, and tactical information. Around her, the other Marines completed their own startup sequences. All systems green, reported Corporal Cho Hyun, flexing his armored fingers. The suit responded perfectly, amplifying his movements without any delay. Drop pods ready, announced Private Song Minji from her position near the launch tubes. Her suit's sensor array was already scanning the asteroid, mapping defensive positions through the ship's hull. Park nodded and opened the squad frequency. Listen up, everyone. The aliens think these pirates are too tough for them to handle. Let's show them what happens when humans get serious. The drop pods launched from the frigate in a tight formation, arcing toward the asteroid base. Each pod contained a single Marine in full power armor, hurtling through space at tremendous speed. The pirate sensors immediately detected the incoming projectiles, and defensive batteries swiveled to engage what they assumed were more easy targets. The first plasma blast struck Park's pod dead center as she descended toward the asteroid's surface. The alien observers watching through long-range sensors expected to see the human vaporized instantly. Instead, they watched in shock as energy cascaded harmlessly across adaptive shielding, while Park's pod continued its approach without even slowing down. Impossible, breathed a Zephyrian technician, her crystal body flickering with rapid data processing. That was a direct hit from a Class 7 plasma cannon. Nothing that small should have survived. More plasma fire converged on the descending pods, creating a light show that could be seen from orbit. But the human drop pods pushed through the barrage like meteors, their shielding systems absorbing and dispersing energy that would have destroyed conventional spacecraft. Park's boots hit the asteroid surface with an impact that cracked the rock beneath her feet. Her suit's shock absorbers handled the tremendous force effortlessly, and she stood up in a cloud of dust and debris. Around her, the other Marines landed with similar impacts, their armor absorbing kinetic energy that would have turned an unprotected human into paste. Sound off, Park commanded over the squad frequency. Cho here, all systems operational. Song ready, sensors are painting targets. Kim standing by, weapons hot. One by one, 30 Marines reported in. Every single human had survived what should have been a devastating defensive barrage. Then they began to move. The pirates who had been confidently tracking the descending pods suddenly found their sensors struggling to keep up. The humans weren't, moving like the slow, clumsy warriors the aliens had expected. Instead, they bounded across the asteroid's surface in great leaps, using the low gravity and their suits' power to cover ground at impossible speed. Park vaulted over a defensive barrier that had stopped the Krillian warriors cold. Her suits, strength amplifiers allowing her to jump nearly 50 meters in a single bound. Behind her, Cho smashed through a reinforced blast door with his bare hands, the power armor's servos providing enough force to tear apart metal like paper. Target. The joints, screamed a pirate commander over their communications channel. All armor has weak points, but as the pirates concentrated their fire on what they thought were vulnerable spots, they discovered something disturbing. The human armor had no obvious weak points. Overlapping plates protected every joint, and reactive systems seemed to anticipate incoming fire before redirecting it harmlessly away. Song's sensor array painted target indicators for the rest of the squad, while her AI system tracked enemy movements through solid rock. 12 hostiles in the next chamber, she reported calmly. Plasma rifles and particle weapons, recommend breach and clear. The alien commanders watching from orbit were struggling to process what they were seeing. The humans who had seemed So fragile were now moving through defensive positions that had stopped their best warriors. The primitive-looking armor was proving more effective than anything in their own arsenals. "How are they doing this?" General Vexthor demanded, his warrior's pride crumbling as he watched humans accomplish the impossible. On the asteroid's surface, Park's squad reached the main entrance to the pirate base. The massive blast doors were designed to stop heavy vehicles, but Park simply placed her armored hands against the metal and began to push. The doors groaned and began to bend. "Breaching. In 30 seconds, Park announced to her squad. "Remember, we have hostages to rescue. Keep it clean." The last thing the alien observers heard before the communication feeds went chaotic was the sound of rending metal as 30 human Marines disappeared into the asteroid fortress. The blast doors exploded inward with a thunderous crash that shook the entire asteroid. Through the smoke and debris, 30 human Marines advanced into the pirate stronghold like unstoppable machines of war. Their armor gleamed under the harsh artificial lights, and their weapons hummed with barely contained energy. Corporal Cho Hyun took point, his suit's sensors scanning the corridors ahead while his AI system mapped the complex layout. Behind him, the other Marines moved in perfect formation, each one covering different angles and approaches. They had trained for situations like this countless times, but this was their first real combat deployment in full-power armor. "Contact. Front," Cho announced calmly as pirates appeared at the far end of the corridor. The enemy fighters opened fire immediately, plasma bolts and particle beams filling the narrow space with deadly energy. The humans didn't even slow down. Cho's armor absorbed the first volley of fire without any visible effect. The adaptive shielding systems that the aliens had dismissed as primitive technology proved their worth, dispersing energy across the suit's entire surface, rather than allowing it to concentrate at impact points. "Returning fire," announced Private Song Minji as she raised her weapon. The plasma rifle mounted on her armor was far larger than anything an unaugmented human could carry, powered directly by her suit's fusion reactor. When she pulled the trigger, the blast that emerged was bright enough to leave afterimages on nearby surfaces. The pirate who had been shooting at her simply ceased to exist. The remaining pirates in the corridor scrambled for cover, but there was nowhere to hide from the advancing humans. Park's squad moved forward methodically, their weapons picking off targets with mechanical precision, while their armor shrugged off return fire. On the orbiting command ships, alien officers watched, their tactical displays in stunned silence. The humans were advancing through the pirate base faster than anyone had thought possible, overcoming defensive positions that had stopped elite alien warriors. "This is impossible," muttered a Zephyrian tactical officer, her crystal body flickering, with rapid calculations. "Those corridors should be kill zones. How are they moving so freely?" General Vexthor said nothing, but his 4 hands gripped the edges of his command console hard enough to leave dents in the metal. His pride as a warrior was being systematically destroyed as he watched humans accomplish what his finest troops could not. Deep inside the asteroid, the Marines encountered their first serious resistance. The pirates had set up a defensive position in a large chamber, complete with energy barriers and automated weapon systems. It was the kind of fortification that would have required heavy vehicles or orbital bombardment to overcome. Staff Sergeant Park Gina studied the tactical display on her helmet's heads-up screen. The AI analysis showed multiple firing positions, overlapping fields of fire, and enough concentrated firepower to stop a small army. "Cho, take your team left. Song, go right. I'll take the center," she ordered. "Standard breach and clear, but watch for civilians. Intelligence says there are hostages somewhere in this complex." The 3 teams moved simultaneously, their coordination perfect despite the chaos around them. Cho's team vaulted over the energy barriers like they were minor obstacles, while Song's group punched through a reinforced wall that was supposed to be impenetrable. The pirates found themselves fighting an enemy that didn't follow the normal rules of combat. Weapons that should have been devastating proved ineffective. Barriers that should have provided protection were simply ignored or destroyed. The humans moved through their defensive positions like ghosts, appearing where they shouldn't be able to go and striking from impossible angles. "Fall back to the command center," screamed a pirate leader over the communication channels. "Activate the emergency protocols. but there was nowhere to fall back to. The humans were already everywhere, having spread through the complex with inhuman speed and efficiency. Their armor allowed them to move through areas that would have been lethal to organic beings, and their weapons could punch through any barrier the pirates had erected. Private Kim Jun found the first group of hostages in a sealed chamber near the center of the base. The civilian prisoners were huddled together in terror, expecting to be killed at any moment. When Kim's armored form appeared in the doorway, they initially thought he was another enemy. "It's okay," Kim said, his voice filtering through the suit's external speakers. "I'm human. We're here to rescue you." The hostages stared in disbelief. They had heard the battle raging through the complex, the sounds of destruction and weapons fire that suggested a major military assault. But this single figure in strange armor claimed to be their rescuer. "Where are the soldiers?" asked one of the prisoners, a merchant captain who had been captured 3 weeks earlier. "I am the soldier," Kim replied simply. "My team and I are handling the situation." Meanwhile, Park's group had reached the pirate command center. The heavy blast doors that protected it were designed to withstand heavy weapons, but Park simply grabbed the edges and began to pry them apart. The suit's strength amplifiers provided enough force to bend solid metal like soft clay. The pirate commanders inside watched in horror as the doors were literally torn from their hinges. Through the opening stepped a single human marine, her armor scorched and dented from the battle but still fully operational. "Surrender," Park announced calmly, her weapon trained on the terrified pirates. "The base is secure, your forces are neutralized, and the hostages are safe. You have 60 seconds to decide." The pirate leader, a massive alien with natural armor, plating that rivaled a Krillian warrior, looked at the human with a mixture of fear and confusion. "How?" he whispered. "How did you do this? We had hundreds of fighters, military-grade weapons, fortified positions." Park's helmet retracted, revealing her face for the first time. She was young, probably in her 20s, and looked completely ordinary. There was nothing about her that suggested she was capable of the destruction she had just unleashed. "Human engineering," she said with a slight smile. "We tend to be thorough." The surrender came 30 seconds later. The pirate stronghold fell silent for the first time in months. Where once the corridors had echoed with the sounds of criminal activity and weapons fire, now there was only the quiet hum of human power armor as the Marines completed their sweep of the facility. In less than 4 hours, 30 humans had accomplished what a combined alien fleet had failed to do in days of fighting. Captain Lee Minho stood in the captured command center, watching his Marines escort prisoners and freed hostages through the complex. The contrast was striking. Hardened alien criminals who had terrorized the Outer Rim for years now walked with their heads down, guarded by humans who looked almost casual in their bulky armor. General Vexthor arrived with the first wave of alien reinforcements, his massive form filling the doorway as he entered the command center. The proud Krillian warrior looked around at the scene with obvious confusion. Blast doors had been torn apart like paper. Reinforced walls showed fist-sized holes where human weapons had punched through. Equipment that should have required heavy machinery to move had been casually pushed aside. "Explain this," the general demanded, his forearms gesturing at the destruction. "My sensors show that only 30 humans participated in this assault." 30? How is this possible? Staff Sergeant Park Gina approached, her helmet retracting, to reveal her young face. To the general, she looked like a child playing dress-up in oversized armor. The idea that this small human had led the assault that had broken his warriors seemed impossible. "Superior equipment and training, sir," Park replied respectfully. "Our power armor gives us significant advantages in close combat situations." The general's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation among his species. "Power armor? These crude mechanical suits? My warriors have natural armor that has evolved over millions of years." Park nodded politely. "Yes, sir, and that's impressive. But our armor isn't just protection. It's a complete weapons platform, sensor suite, and life support system all in one. Each suit has its own fusion reactor, artificial intelligence assistant, and adaptive defensive systems. A Zephyrian technician who had been examining the captured pirate equipment looked up from her analysis. Her crystal body pulsed with what Park had learned to recognize as amazement. "The energy readings from your suits are extraordinary," she said. "Each one contains more processing power than our entire command ship." Ambassador Kim Hana arrived with the diplomatic fleet, and she immediately called for an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The great chamber on Nexus Prime filled once again, but the atmosphere was completely different from their first meeting. Where before there had been condescension and mockery, now there was respectful silence as the alien representatives studied the tactical reports from the asteroid assault. "The humans accomplished in 4 hours what our combined forces could not do in 4 days," General Vexthor admitted grudgingly. "Their casualties were 0. Their equipment suffered minimal damage. It was flawless." The Vorthak representatives' liquid form rippled with what might have been embarrassment. Its psychic voice in everyone's minds was much more subdued than before. "We underestimated them severely. Their mental discipline while wearing the armor is remarkable. We could not penetrate their thoughts during combat." Ambassador Kim stood before the assembly, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood 3 Marines in full power armor, Park, Cho, and Song. The sight of the humans in their combat gear sent a visible ripple through the alien observers. "Honored representatives," Kim began, "humanity has demonstrated our commitment to galactic security. We revealed our military capabilities not to threaten anyone, but to prove that we can contribute meaningfully to the common defense." The Zephyrian counselor's crystalline form flickered with rapid data processing. "Your technology raises many questions. How long have you possessed these capabilities? Why hide them from the galaxy?" Kim smiled diplomatically. "We didn't hide anything. We simply didn't volunteer information that wasn't requested. When you asked about our military strength, you assumed that our unaugmented physical capabilities represented our limits. We never made that claim." She gestured to the Marines behind her. "Human philosophy has always been that the individual soldier, properly equipped and trained, can overcome any challenge. Our power armor represents 50 years of development and the finest engineering our species can produce." A smaller alien, representative from the Outer Rim territories, spoke up. "But why develop such technology? Most species rely on their natural abilities enhanced by basic equipment." Dr. Yoon Soo, who had been quietly observing from the side, stepped forward. "Because humans have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. We had to create our own advantages. Every system in our power armor was designed to solve a specific problem that our biology couldn't handle." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives were impressed by human ingenuity. Others were concerned about the implications of such powerful individual weapons. A few were openly fearful of what humans might do with their technology. Finally, the ancient Vorthak representative spoke, its thoughts pressing gently against every mind in the chamber. "Perhaps we have all learned something valuable today. We assumed that visible strength was the only strength that mattered. We looked at humanity and saw weakness where we should have seen potential. The vote to grant humanity full partnership in galactic defense passed with only 2 abstentions. But more important than the political victory was the shift in how the galaxy viewed the small species from the yellow star." As the session ended, General Vexthor approached Ambassador Kim privately. "Your Marines fought with honor today," he said, the words clearly difficult for the proud warrior. "I would be interested in learning more about your training methods." Kim smiled. "I'm sure something can be arranged, General. After all, we're partners now." The galaxy had learned that strength comes in many forms, and that underestimating others based on appearances could be a dangerous mistake. Humanity had earned their place among the stars not through natural gifts but through intelligence, determination, and the willingness to enhance their weaknesses rather than accept them. And in the depths of space, other species began to wonder what other surprises the humans might have hidden away.